Okay, welcome. This is the Historical Commission meeting of October 12th, 2021, and this meeting is being recorded, and it will be on the Dayton YouTube channel at a later date. So, then I call the meeting to order. So let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a video showing?
Here you go.
Okay. Oh, yeah. All right, Secretary's report. We have 3 minutes. Minutes of August 31st, 2021, minutes of September 14th, 2021, and September 23rd. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the minutes of August 31st, September 14th, and September 23rd. That's so moved. Is there a second? No second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Bill?
Aye.
Macca? Bill? Pam? Aye. Pat? Aye. And I also aye. Now we're going to accepting the minutes of August 31st. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of August 31st? Moved. Is there a second? No second. Any discussion or corrections? No, okay. Okay, I did that. All in favor, Pat? Pam? Bill? Rafa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. We've accepted those minutes. Okay. The minutes of September 14th, 2021. I did see some things. We didn't meet at the lower level in the title, so we were up here in the meeting room. So we'll correct that. And the only other thing was the corrections under the historical marker program ended up being like duplicated. So Rafa had sent his corrections to Pam, and they are 6 houses are being considered for the historical marker program. Delton plans a dedication for his house and Eugene Rose House. In addition, Delton will continue to promote historical markers. Nickerson will contact Michael DeChico from the Taunton Daily Gazette for publicity. DeChico just suggested the Dayton Historical Commission watch the video via YouTube in 15-minute segments at the meeting. That replaces the section 4 that we had that read 6 historic home markers, but to change the correct title are under consideration. Changing Delton plans dedication for his home to house. And again, the name change to the correct historical marker program, home historical markers. And that's that. So we just have to delete the second part that I just read. Those are the only things that I saw. Did anyone find anything else that they want to change or edited? I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as amended. So moved. Is there a second? A second. And we'll vote. Gail? Aye. Rafa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Pat? Aye. Pam? Aye. And I'm also an aye, so we've accepted those minutes. The minutes of September 23rd, 2021. Is there any corrections? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Bill?
Aye.
Rafa?
Aye.
Gail? Pam?
Aye.
And Pat?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Those minutes are accepted. So I'll be filing those with Mark. So tonight we have, Mark Pacheco is here, our town clerk, and he has, a project with the preservation of the, historical town records. So Mark, you want to come join us? And tell us about your project.
All right, thank you for having me, I appreciate it. So I only made 6 copies, I didn't know how many to make, so I'll place some copies here. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. That's so much, share, see what we got. Okay, I'll share with you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. All right. Alrighty, so where to start? As you guys know, I'm the town clerk, so vital records I'm the keeper of records, and you know, the vital records are something that I interact with every day. So if you open up your packet, the first thing you're gonna see is some large numbers. The second thing that you'll see is basically an inventory here. One is 16 books, and these 16 books are in the vault upstairs, and they are basically from the 1700s to the 1950s, approximately, births, deaths, and marriages. These are books that previous town clerks kept and recorded these births, deaths, and marriages, and they are used by our office as a primary record every day. So they're used by people doing genealogy, people have questions about their past. We still use these books. We go to the book, we find the record, and we're doing copies, certified copies off of these records. So I'm new into the role, and I'm a pair of fresh eyes, and what I see is if anything ever happened to these books, they're irreplaceable. They would be gone. If I ever dropped a book, we spill something on it, it gets nicked, they get banged, there's no going back. So what I'm looking to do is I would like to make true copies of the books. So when people come in to do research, they're not actually touching, the one and only, they're touching a reproduction. I'd like to have them digitized, so hopefully people can do as much research as they can at home, much like comic parks and certain surrounding towns do. And I'd also like to have them restored. So most of the books have been restored in the past. And the preservation practices they did back in the day, you find out aren't the best. They put tape on things, they put silk on the pages, and some of the glues they use actually aren't good for the pages, it dries them out. The more you look and see what they did, the more you find out it helps, but it hurts too. So I'm looking for a recommendation from you guys. These are some big numbers. I'd like to go to the Cpc and start preserving these books. I don't have to do it all at once. They're getting older, but they're not getting older by the year, and we're getting older by the decade. So I'd like to hear what your questions have, what you think I should do. There's no better group to talk to about this than you guys. So I picked the 16 books that we deal with on a daily basis because they're getting banged up. And then I have in another packet, I just chose 2 that I felt time was of the essence to have them restored, and that was the Proprietor's records, which date back to the 1600s. It's really the founding of the town. I don't know if this has ever been a copy of the Proprietor's records, but we wouldn't be here without that book. And then the Act to incorporate 1814. just to wrap up, there's a lot to this request, it's involved, so I hope I'm making sense. There's only one quote, it's from Northeast Document Conservation Center. They are local, they're in Andover, they are a nonprofit, and they're regarded among clerks as best in the business. So they, really, it's a craft, it's such a dedicated skill. They're the only ones around here that do it. If you're interested in getting a competitor, they're out west, they're California, they're not anywhere local. So you have to ship them. I have no interest in that, and these are one of a kind records. You want them close by. So, they are regarded among the best among clerks. They give a lot back if you look and you fit their criteria. And there's a lot of, they do awesome things. I don't know what else to say.
I've actually looked at some of the originals, doing some genealogy research, and they are fragile, especially the birth, deaths, and marriage. Some of those you can already find online through the index and through family search and ancestry. Sometimes it takes a bit of looking to do it, but you can find some of it. There's something about going in person to the town clerk's office and doing the research and getting the certified copies. And lots of times you need certified copies for, if you want to belong to some of the lineage societies, you need like the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Sons of the American Revolution, the Mayflower Society. They require the certified copies, and that's where Mark's role comes in. I think it's like, wow, quite an undertaking. Wow. I don't know, does anyone have any input to help Mark? I know Marta and I met with Mark in June or July, early July, and encouraged him at that point to see, find another, some other vendors just for a comparison to get the quotes. And still, the company that he's referring to is the one that came out the best. You get the most bang for your buck, even though it is a lot of money. You look at the total figure, and you're like, oh.
The prices are overwhelming.
Yeah.
But when you think of what they're doing.
Right.
And it doesn't all have to be done once, like you said.
It
right?
doesn't.
You can kind of.
I really believe they're getting older, but they're not getting older overnight. They've worked for 100 years, so we don't have to do it. And that's why I was looking for a recommendation. Where do you start? You start with one book, you start with 10. I would love to know what's a reasonable number to go to the CPC with. I just don't know, it's.
If I could, anyone not a member, if I could speak in this,
Right.
we're probably gonna need 3 bids anyway.
Mhm.
But this might be the most reasonable one, so hopefully this is the one that we end up with. But I do think, you ought to go for the whole thing. I think if you're gonna go before the townspeople, especially if it's CPC, when it's this taxes that we've already paid for.
Right.
So I think you ought to go for the whole thing with the CPC. Now, you're planning to do it, because I think they have a closing date of November 15th? Or
November 30th.
November 30th?
Yeah.
I would hope so to make it before then.
And I believe that they're gonna ask for 3 quotes too, so.
Right.
I don't know if we need that at the beginning of the process, but I believe that I know that when we do the historical society, I think that the 3 quotes for everything that we're doing at the society. Just so that they can have a good idea. I think you should probably go for around $100,000, perhaps, around the figure. The other question is, we don't have anything that goes back to 1712 when the town was founded. This is the 1754, is that the beginning of, or is that volume 1? That's probably volume 1.
Oh,
Probably
that would be, volume 1 goes back even further.
Okay, good.
Yes,
That's my comments on that.
I appreciate it.
So, in going forward, the proprietor records, nothing's been done as far as you can find, as far as conserving or digitizing those?
As far as digitizing, not that I'm aware of, it was in the past, I believe maybe 100 years ago, from what people have told me when looking at it, the town would have paid to have it preserved then. So the proprietor's records are all bound in silk.
Okay,
okay. So it still has its advantages and disadvantages, but it's time to be, if you see the book, I would love to broaden, but that would have been not good.
Right.
If you look at the book, it's time for it to be preserved again, and, it's such an old book, I don't think anyone should touch it. I think it should be a reproduction copy, and it should be really under lock and key, it's so precious.
So Mark, you already paid a visit to the CPC, you were asking for $10,000, but how does that, was that just like a homebrew scanning here with a scanner and a computer or something, or?
So that's a separate project, so we have births, deaths, marriages, the forms, those are more the 1800s, and those are just in boxes, they're not sorted.
Okay. Rather
So, yeah, they need to be in plastic and sorted, so that was different, that's a pretty small budget item that I didn't feel I needed guidance on, per se, from here, but this year, the sky's the limit, because this opens up more doors too. We have so many books downstairs in the vault that I know you guys have done some work inventorying. So, this really opens the door to, there's Old Town records in there that I was looking at, I saw there's more vital records. I don't have my whole head wrapped around what exactly is down there, but as we think about this and know that this is available, I'd love to have those discussions too.
I know you wrote the births and deaths and marriages just so you can sleep better at night. You do know there's a copy of those in the library, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I do.
because I've gone to the library and gotten their births. I didn't know there was one at the town hall.
Oh, okay.
So somebody made a copy at one point and put them in the library.
Are you talking about the index, the orange and green book?
Yes.
Yeah, those are the index that, Carr did, I can't think of his first name right now, in like 1983. So that's the index to the books, the volume 1, 2, 3, and 4 that Mark is referring to. So yes, it
Well,
has.
it's more than an index then, maybe I'm saying the wrong thing.
No, that's, yeah, it's the orange and green books, because it'll also give like the parents' names or the spouse's name, and then it lists like a family unit when they were born and stuff. So it does give you a lot of information, but that's considered an index of what's in those birth, death, and marriage records that are handwritten from the early 1700s through. And because it tells you what book and page to go to. So you can look at that, go see Mark or Pam at Town Hall and say, I want to see book 1, page, this page, and they can bind it for you. And that's when you get the original certified copy from them.
Okay. The books you were nice enough to help me one day to get out of the basement were the Assessors Records
Yes.
that I was telling them about. I honestly felt funny touching those with my hands because nobody asked me to put gloves on or anything.
Right.
I mean, that's a one-of-a-kind, library doesn't have a copy of those. And they're fragile, and they're handwritten, and they're old, and I'm all for digitizing and, getting into the 21st century,
Well, not many people have the privilege of seeing that vault, in my opinion, downstairs. So most everyone here has probably been there and seen the vault. I know it's state of the art. We're lucky to have it. It prevents mold and mildew on our records. But really, I see this as a start to doing all that. It's not just our department, there's other departments. I think it was for you, it was the first time I touched those as well, and there's.
Wasn't it? Wasn't it? I mean, you went home and you said, I learned something today.
Well, they're on the top shelf, they're hard to get to, they're heavy, and
We went to
Good
you
thing you
for your
didn't
height.
drop it.
what was that?
We went to you for your height.
Oh, yes.
First you were a guy, and then you were a tall guy. So we couldn't have a short guy.
So we want those digitized and.
Now you know why you were voted in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Ken, when you said you got the whole thing, you mean all of like
The 3 figures that he's given us, I think we are,
and then not the one with like the proprietor's record and the actual incorporate this time, or,
well, that was separate, right?
yeah, that's separate.
That's separate, so the proprietor's records, no one would touch, and if someone requested to see it, I don't know what I'd say, because I don't think anyone should touch it, but Yeah, so this quote here for the 94 is just for the vital records. And then I wanted to have a discussion on proprietors and how to incorporate. Future, with this company would be so expensive because a bulk of the price is this reproduction, so making a true copy of the book. If you look, that's way more than it is to even conserve the books and digitize. So I think it's necessary for the births, deaths, and marriages, and I think proprietors records would be nice. But in the future, all of the other books that are in our possession, I don't know if they could be used to be preserved and scanned. So that's something to be aware of. This is three facets: conserving, reproducing, and digitizing. The reproducing really does have a cost to it.
And I think that is probably very vital to preserving the books, so when people want to come and see the original, you have the reproduction, rather than touching those fragile pages over and over again.
I agree.
So, and having done it, and I know more and more people are doing genealogy and doing research on their families and stuff, so they're coming and looking, at the records. They want to see the records. In fact, last week there was a woman who stopped at the historical society who had already been to town hall and got her information. So, and she came on a trip from North Carolina to do her genealogy research. So, I agree. I think, put in for the whole thing and then be ready to maybe we have to prioritize what needs to be done and do that.
I would recommend to conserve the books first and foremost, and then digitize the books. Once the digitalized versions are available online, anybody who wants to access the digital version can charge money for that service, and we can use that money to create reproductions. In addition to the money the CPC will give us.
So digitizing them, is it reproducing the actual document, or is it just?
So digitizing, they'll scan every page and they'll put it on a hard drive. We have to have something to host it, which would be another avenue that has to be looked into.
So if it's digitized, then we don't have to really have the reproductions, I would think, if it's already preserved. So the public, from home, if you want to certify, they have to see you, I guess.
If it's digitized, it will prevent a lot of foot traffic. It really will. It'll be
If
less.
somebody wants to certify, they go and see you print it out and certify, or they can bring a copy and certify it, I guess.
Right, yeah.
That's something to consider.
Yeah, I didn't think of that one, yeah.
So basically, each one of us can scan our who's volunteer.
I love that idea. I would totally, we could do that for so many things.
First, that's for those books.
I don't even trust myself with the books. I think they're too important.
And that's why I think professionals need to.
Right.
do it.
And that's talking about how invaluable these are. I called Bex, who's Northeast Document Conservation, she's in charge there, and I was talking to her today about insuring them. I said, how do you even find a price to insure these books? And they said, they're one of a kind. They're irreplaceable. If you lose them, there's really no cost. I mean, you can have some that praise them, but it's true. These are one of a kind. So that's the way I look at it.
Are these books insured?
I would
I'm
guess.
sure they fall under town's insurance. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but sometimes when you add old artifacts to insurance, they're just like, it drives up the insurance rate to astronomical levels.
Right.
Because of the replacement value.
And that's a great thing about digitizing. If we have these digitized, and that's the whole point in my mind. One, it prevents foot traffic of touching these documents, and two, there's a natural disaster, they're someplace else.
Right.
They're on the surface
Right.
someplace else, not here, which I think is awesome.
So Mark, if these books, I've never looked at them, are they like line by line items?
There's all sorts, so the record keeping in the 1700s is very different than what they're doing in the 1950s. So some of them are chicken scratch, you look and there's a birth next to a death, next to a marriage, and you can hardly read it. Versus the 1900s, it's line by line, it's very neat.
When you say digitized, though, just scanning, this is more than just scanning the pages.
So you couldn't do a search function of any kind.
Well-
It's,
You need to pick out each line,
No,
no?
No.
Why not?
it's just scanning. It's just so that they are.
So scanning, how do we go from scanning the page, so I just get a reproduction of one of the pages, right?
Mhm.
How do we go from, is that all the digitized number comes from? The 26.7?
So the way I look at it, have you ever like gone online, looked at a book online? You know how they scan the books and you can flip it page by page? I really think it would be a similar format.
But how would you, I figured you would want to be able, we're not even talking about putting things online in these numbers, right?
We're not.
So, and we're also not talking apparently about being able to search for records in a database or something, program or something. Because if you just take a picture of a page in the book, all you're gonna get is a picture of the page in the book. There's no way to disassemble it so you can do searches or, you know, all that kind of stuff. That's like another level.
Right, I really want to keep it simple, so I think you would have the books, and this company is really one-stop shop. They can do everything except post it for you. So I wouldn't really be, unless I'm told otherwise, if there's an interest by you guys or more by the town, everything costs money. I simply would just want the books available and then hosted online somewhere. And the hosting would be a separate project.
Okay, so you would
And I think it
have,
would be an easy project.
so you could bring up a page at a time.
You could bring up the book, so you would say, I wanna look at first from 1899 to 1937, and you could,
And
you would look just like you would
send you
here.
that page that's been digitized so you can look it up on the page itself, is that what you mean?
It would be some sort of reader, yeah, just like, if you ever go to Google Books, it would be very similar to that.
In that price, in the digitized price would include, it doesn't include apparently online costs, because that's a whole different,
That's a whole different
so
project.
that would be another. So, and you couldn't even have an online presence. If
But
you don't have,
the
you know,
digitizing too is not only for people to be able to search it, but it's also to maintain a second copy in case something happens to the original in town hall or something, a disaster. You have at least a digitized copy of that material.
Exactly.
okay,
I'm really not too worried about getting it online. I think that's the easy part. There's, for a lot of these that are public records after 100 years, there's free hosting sites you can put them on. If we're interested in hosting it ourselves, that's another avenue. I really think if we get that far, this is the hard part, right?
And those volumes are online, they're on Ancestry and Family Search.
Which ones? All of these?
I'm not sure if all of them are, but I know some of the earlier ones are, because I've seen them. I was
Okay,
doing research on the Pitts family and found, the birth records,
that's awesome.
so, yeah, they are there.
So how do they get there though? Is some family member hosted?
I don't know how they got there, I didn't.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
I don't know, yeah.
It's very good to know.
Yeah.
So I would assume from the index, then the books that you were talking about that are at the library, you can find out which page, whatever you're interested in, and then you can go on the digitized thing and print out. I don't think it should cost people, quite frankly, I don't think it should cost people. Now, if they want a certified copy from you, obviously it should cost them something.
Right.
But I don't think it should cost, if I'm online, I want to get some history of my house, of some person. I don't know why I would have to, if it's already, taxpayers have already paid for it, why would we charge anything else? The other thing is, we were talking about scanning, are they enhancing the pages in any way? I mean, if it's kind of faded, do they darken it or?
So that's a good question. They won't even talk to you about digitizing unless you go through and you have the books conserved. So the way they explain it to me is when they're done conserving the book, you're gonna say, this is really the book that I gave you. That's how good they make it look. They take out all the bleeding and all the mold and they clean it. They actually wash the pages. So when they digitize it, it should be very easy to read. So that's the way they explained it to me. So I think, I'm not sure about enhancing after the fact, but I know they do such a good job on the pages that we should
So they have a
be
good,
able to read it.
picture to take, kind of thing.
Yes, and they do it all on site there. It's the same people that are cleaning the pages and rebinding it, the same people who are taking the pictures, which is awesome.
So wouldn't it be the right thing to do, like, I think as Rafa mentioned, if I got what his recommendation was? Because when you look at the reproduction costs, 41,955, that's almost half the bottom line, so I think Rafa mentioned that maybe you digitize the books as they, in the condition they're in, I guess. And now you've got to digitize and then then you conserve those books. And you don't bother with the reproduction, is that what you meant? Yeah, because that cuts it in half.
It does.
It's almost in half.
It does, so I really want to hear what, yes. That is the $40,000 question, how important is it? So what you say does take care of, it's more accessible, so people can do it online, and,
And you
it's
wouldn't
conserved.
be using those books, I mean, in the town hall, when somebody comes in for genealogical stuff and all that, which I've done as well, I didn't know what's the background of that, but
Well,
wouldn't that would, so then, once you conserve the books, if you digitize it and then you go ahead and conserve the books, and then after that, I wouldn't see the need to even access those books after that, right? You could go to the digitized, but whoever's servicing the requests for genealogical data and so forth. Now they have to go to those books, right?
well, that assumes they went online, they looked at the book online, they printed out the page, what have you. If you have someone doing the traveling or someone
Yeah,
comes down.
there is some extra work and money involved in having that, making that happen. You have to have a server, maybe you could use the same server that the town website uses.
Yeah, but right now, you're not talking about any kind of servers or getting it.
I'm not, if I get this far, I'm not really worried about the service,
So,
that one.
my opinion, the priorities are conserve the books first, no matter what, because you don't want them to be touched even for pictures until they're conserved. Digitize, and then create a reproduction, because if people are coming in to do research, they want to look at the books, nor do we want the town clerk staff to always be sitting there doing the research for the people.
Absolutely.
Because that's a time issue. You can have somebody there full-time probably doing research.
Yes.
But wouldn't that be a problem for the flow of events? Because if I'm not mistaken, the staff at the town hall who looks it up and everything, when they get a request in, they have to go to one of these books, right?
That's the problem.
Well, but if the company if you want to,
I guess, yes, you have to find out.
well, if you do it the way you want, then some of those books would be going back and forth, and then, or
No,
they,
you have.
so how would you lose information periodically for a while because it's being worked on, right? The
I don't
books.
understand where you're going.
You don't understand that?
I don't understand what you're trying to
Okay.
say.
The company that wants to restore, if we turn on the company that wants to restore the books, they're not gonna come here and restore them, they're gonna wanna take it to their plant or wherever the heck it is. So during the time, certain books, that 16 volume or whatever it is, are going to be not here and not accessible.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to, to restore them before you digitize them. If you
But that's the process that you
Right,
explained.
when you restore them, you get a better picture of it, my understanding, so.
Yeah, but how are you gonna
digitize.
deal with the logistics of people?
They're gonna have to wait, I mean,
I
I don't think they're gonna take all
wait.
16 volumes.
So if somebody comes in and they say, oh, that book's out for restoration, sorry.
Well, that's reality, right?
And then how long does it take? Maybe it's 3 months.
All right, those are issues
Logistic.
in getting the job done. It really doesn't have to do with the cost of it right now. So we're looking at the cost and the expense. Mark's asked for our input as far as getting this part of the job done. What you're talking about are the logistics after or during, which we don't even know at this point in time.
What's that?
What you're talking about are the logistics for after or during.
After what?
After he gets the project going. So right now, you're looking for a recommendation, what we think would be the most important way to proceed
Absolutely.
to get to the point where we have to worry about what happens to the books.
Yeah, either way, when I think about it, even the digitizing is going to be the same kind of process. In other words, books are going to be disappearing and coming back. And during the time that they disappear, we do not offer certain services for certain books.
Yes. And that happens all the time, but I think that's further down the road than tonight.
So there's really no way out of
I'm
this.
sorry.
So what's the last time person actually got to see?
Well, yeah, that's Pat, she was probably the last person. I'm gonna agree with what Rafa suggested, that we consider the books and then we digitize them, so go for that now, and then at some point we wanna do reproduction, that's.
I would agree. Yeah,
So I'm gonna support that, I'm gonna make my decision to support that, it makes
Yeah.
sense.
it makes
Thank you.
sense.
I think that's very reasonable. Is there any thoughts or discussion on the proprietor's records? Should I do that at the same time?
Explain to me what those,
So when we actually, this is what Marna told me, I believe you were there for that, because I asked Marna,
Yeah,
town historian. And the way, I believe it was explained, and if she's watching, I apologize in advance. It's when we purchased the land from the Native Americans. So we purchased the land, they wrote down what we purchased, so it says easterly this way and westerly this way to this tree. And those records, so it's basically the founding of the town.
and I think it's other land purchases too, besides just that.
There's more to it, there's definitely more to it than what I said.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a $10,000 figure you got on that, or roughly 10?
So the treatment of the book is $6,465. The reproduction is $2,505, so that's about $9,000, let's say. And then digitizing us for 2 books was $2,060. So yeah, if we did the one, it'd be $10,000, right on, exactly.
And that's doing the reproduction.
Yes, out of all the books, it's in the worst shape, so it is more money. But if you look at the pages, they're all torn, they're missing parts of it, and it was treated 100 years ago not well, so it creates additional work to get it up to par. And it is the oldest book in our possession, I assume, it's back in the 1600s.
I personally think we ought to do that, along with this here, unless Rafa changes my mind, comes to us.
Did you see any books that record divorces?
No, but I wasn't looking
That's
for
too
volumes.
So I would say the proprietor's records should be treated too, do the treatment on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and start with those 3 things, proprietor treatment of records, conserving the vital records books, and the digitizing of them. That makes sense.
Thank you, yes, that, whatever you guys said tonight is what I was gonna go for, so that sounds like we're in agreement, and that's what I can move forward with. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank
When
you.
is the CPC, when are you gonna give estimates from the CPC, do you need our support for it?
I don't know, I wanted it to be vetted by someone more than me, so I didn't know if a vote would be nice, or a letter, or if it's just in the minutes, I really don't know the way to go about it. I really wanted to go to the CPC and say, it was given more thought than just what I thought.
We can, make a motion to support Mark's project and write a letter of recommendation to the CPC.
Are you asking about the time involved or?
No, about the treatment to conserve the proprietor records, conserving the 16 vital record books, and digitizing the 16 vital record books.
Well, yes, have to give a proposal.
Right, but when he does that, well, what I'm saying is, do we want to support him in that effort? And we would do that by making a motion to support him and write a letter to the CPC.
Yeah, if you're talking about leaving out the, reproducing the books, I would think they've done it too, but I would think that would have a pretty good chance, I would think. I would vote for it.
Thank you.
All right, I need a motion to support Mark's project and regards to conserving and treatment of the proprietor records, conserve the 16 vital record books, and to digitize the vital record books.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Go ahead, Beth.
Any further discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. Bill? Rafa? Pam? Pam?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. Okay, thank you. So we have a motion to, we made a motion to write a letter of support, and I got that together. A second, so I'll send it to Mark, so you can do it with your application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all of your time. I was-
Thanks so
I was
much,
very
very
good.
interesting.
I can't wait, I'm so excited. I really am.
The book now, see?
Rafa, you can take the extra. You both have one? Okay.
So maybe it's after the table.
When was this come to the?
Right. So do we have to turn your video on, the big screen?
No, we're fine, that should play through there, it's saying, right now, there's no, when you speak, we're not gonna, I'm not sure what that's happening. I'm just seeing you right now.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, you're the expert.
I know, I'm learning this too as we go along.
If we look at the toolbar on that one, would the video be on? Oh, let's see. Oh, yeah, right there. And the start video.
That would be you, right? Hold on, Jesus.
All right, now it's on. I see you now, Nate.
All right, okay, let's try that and see.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the room now.
Can you see the room now? Okay. Okay, that's a little better, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, to our budget, we have price quotes. And you sent a price quote for the tablecloth. So the total for that I figured was $154.98 for the tablecloth. We have an estimated freight from the manufacturer of $25, and that's a current estimate, it's subject to change depending on the carrier's rates at this time. We've talked about doing the tablecloth for, our events and things. Do we have a motion to proceed with purchasing the tablecloth for, I would say up to $160 in case that rate changes? We'll cover. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Pat, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, so the motion is to purchase a tablecloth for up to $160 for valid printing. And we'll vote Bill, Rafa,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
Pat, and also an aye. We also, Pam, do you have a quote on the stand?
Yes.
Oh, it was on the thing, it was.
I might have left it up there.
Yeah, it was. That's
6630.
6630. This is the scan for the Boston Post King.
That's $66, I think.
I know,
Yeah.
That's insane. Take that.
looks like a $13.
Yeah.
I've been looking, but, I mean, I've been looking. It's tough, so definitely open. I think that's what we're looking for. But yeah, they're a lot of money. I went into,
You go to the market?
I love flea market.
So. After the meeting, we'll play with it, and then we'll come back to see if that is really appropriate or not. Is that, okay?
I really welcome any, they're not easy.
What are you using that for exactly?
Oh, our plaque.
With everybody's name on it, for the Boston Post King.
How big is the plaque?
Oh, it's right here.
We were gonna
Oh, okay.
test her.
I'm already up.
I mean, I don't go to like Michael's and all that, but I would imagine they might have something if someone wants to.
Oh, it's better.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty.
Yeah. Is it sturdy?
It's not wobbly.
Okay, well, maybe it will.
Is that thing made in China? Just curious.
Rafa, it's brass.
It's a good made in India. I read that big in India.
I didn't think it was, but
Yeah.
it looks fine. It's high enough, it's like 2/3 of the back. It's wiggly.
It is pretty.
It is pretty.
I like the brass. There's a black one, a wooden one. Needless to say, I didn't want to grab all the inventory because I stole it, but no. You know, I didn't want to grab all the inventory, but
Alright, so that's, okay.
I know.
What we can do is we'll try it later and then next, in November, we'll make a decision.
Because again, we have time, so we don't really have to back and,
Yeah.
you know, I thought that way we could try it after the meeting. Thank you, Pat.
Alright, thank you. So, our balance budget, our budget balance is $975.21. I got that from the accountant. I do have some bills that need to be signed. I have the bill for W.B. Mason for our some notebooks and manila envelopes that we ordered, and that came to $28.26. The notebooks were on sale. Imagine. So, and also, I have for reimbursement for my fee for the preservation conference of $25, and mailing cost related to the grant of $6.92. Does anyone else have a reimbursement for the conference?
I do.
Gail? Okay. Yeah.
So that was 25 as well from Gail.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we'll add that. So those are our expenses, and then after I'll have you guys sign, okay? All right. Unfinished business, Bristol Agricultural School visit. Happy to send an email from, yes. You want to talk about the email from Robin? Is it Robin?
Van Lots.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, when Pam Hamilton and I visited the Bristol Aggie Schools, the new building, we met with Robin, who is, again, Sam's, I guess, assistant or right-hand person. So she gave us a tour. It was a beautiful, wonderful, memorable tour. And she showed us a space at the bottom of the stairwell where we could actually display, or it could be used as a display for a memorabilia from the old Nat Point house that used to stand on the new building. But I also suggested if we could also use space on the wall by the cafeteria near the exit. So she said that that's an option because that wall has a lot of stuff inside, electrical stuff, other stuff. So is that a question? So I guess she's pretty much reserved for about the stairwell. I don't know how you feel about using the stairwell as the Nat Point Memorial space.
How I feel about using the 3-foot obscure spot under a stairwell that no one's gonna look at, how I feel about that spot.
Well, they are.
How do you feel about
They
it?
are building the display case. The volunteer says, yes, we will build the case once the historical commission decides on the contents of the exhibit. So that's something we also have to discuss. What should we put in the display case?
Okay, so.
So what do you feel? Shall one?
I think it requires another visit and, without it, so I think we need more clarity. It doesn't sound like everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, I particularly don't like it.
Yeah.
It's just too obscure.
But do we know what, before we go to talk to her again, do we know what we want? I mean, I'm not, pictures, I think we ruled out the holy grail pieces or something from the house, going into that. I thought we were just gonna deal with
Yeah,
photographs,
just a picture and a bio,
We
was what
talked
we
about
decided.
that. And she does mention that here too. She says she believes the purpose of hosting the Nat Crane House, inside the student commons is to emphasize that the new building and the immediate outside area was once the location. It should reflect the importance and significance that the home and Nat Crane, I always want to say Nate because that's my grandson's name. Nat Crane had indictment surrounding communities. If there are other homes that play impactful roles in the town or school's history, that may be included in a portion of the write-up for Nat Crane home exhibit. I don't want to lose focus on why the exhibit is located where it is and its intended purpose. So, I haven't seen the area myself. I was kind of relying on, the visit of the three of you and what your recommendations would be.
So she's trying to put us off on multiple houses on this deal. She's saying that, well, you said the Nat Crane house, so, but now you're asking for, what, 2 more house pictures or something?
Well, she said it'd be.
That's what she says,
Yeah, and could include in a portion of the write-up, so you could mention it because there are, but not significant. So we went to her with the goal of preserving the memory of Nat Crane's house. So that's what she's working on. We have to decide if we have a collection of stuff that could go in a case. We don't know that, so we really have to see that and do an inventory of what we got from there. And then have to come into agreement with the people at Bristol Aggie as to where the display would be to be visible. Am I correct?
Right. We didn't think it was very visible. No. It's actually that very sweet.
so you're not gonna fight back on that at all? I mean, you're just gonna say, oh, okay, just Nat Crane, I'm fine.
Well, I think the committee would agree and another visit
Okay.
another
You can discuss it
conversation.
in the future.
And go from there, so my committee is Rafa and Pam and Pat.
Actually, if it's easier, I might bow
And then,
I loved it, but let's get a new set of eyes. And that way we don't have to take minutes if we all go, so, it'd be easier for me. But I agree, yeah, I mean, it was kind of obscure. We liked Bill's idea about including other homes, but I think, yeah, a nice picture, a write-up, and
I think, can I take your place?
that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Yeah, a new set of
That way
eyes.
I can
all right, so
Ask her
Rafa, Bill,
the
and
right
Pat.
questions or whatever.
I would, I mean, nothing's gonna change for me.
I mean, I'm just gonna pitch it again. I think it's a good
Do you
argument.
wanna go, Pat?
I would like my committee to take charge of
You
it.
have to go.
I have to go.
I've seen it once, so I know what the stairway is. I'm not gonna change my opinion, and her message seemed to indicate that's the spot we're being given. Okay, so it's the spot we're being given.
I would also like to go, and I'm not a member, so it doesn't have a
Yeah.
problem.
All right, the three of us can go, because we're not a quorum,
Well, and Ken,
and Ken's not a quorum.
so that's still free.
Yeah.
I'll
All right.
contact them.
So when we do that, though, I think, isn't the stuff that we have from that crane house in the segregation, so maybe we should take a look at that too, because I do think we ought to, we have numerous latches and hinges, maybe we ought to display some of them. If it's in a locked cabinet that we have the key to, they shouldn't have the key to, we should have the key to it,
Right,
so.
all right. So Rafa, you'll set that up. Can you get into the segregated schoolhouse?
Yeah, Karen has the key,
Karen has
you
it?
know, I know people want to wear masks, but we, because of the lead paint, we probably should all wear masks.
Okay.
We had discussed that at the last meeting,
Yeah.
that we would try to get in there. I liked the idea of putting the hinges, especially being a vocational school, the kids can look at what it used to be made of. But again, I understand we're limited on our space
Okay.
to
Yeah.
the obscure stairwell. So if it becomes just a nice picture with a write-up, I can kind of go either way.
Yeah, no, it's.
But I would like to see
it
it
remains
just for my
a-
fun,
Yeah, sure,
just for
if it
my.
remains a staircase, I'm not, really not that interested in it. I mean, I think it's kind of blowing us off a little bit. quite frankly,
Yeah.
so.
All right, we'll give it one more shot, because I do think it should be, we can't do it there, then we'll make a picture wall here.
I mean, I'm kind of thinking, you could even put some in our display case, you know,
Yes.
we have options.
We'll try one more time,
And I'm trying to make.
See what it looks like?
Whatever works for you.
Yeah,
or do you want to just say no?
I don't know, we'll see. Maybe force them to make a cafeteria, not crane cafeteria. How's that?
We'll go one more time and
Because
see
if
if we
we
can
do
do
on the
this.
backdrop, not crane house on the wall.
Okay.
The cow barn.
All right, Rafa, would you, set that up?
Cow barn.
Thank you. I heard from Dave Derrick, whose parents owned, the James Briggs house, and he sent me pictures.
Yay.
Well, a picture, this is it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this is his original, he also had a couple of copies made at Staples.
Oh, great.
Do you know what date, what year that was taken?
I don't know, it's when his parents lived here, and they had the house in the time period that it was here in the 80s.
And the nineties, I
The
think
90s,
New
yeah.
York and Mike had it in the nineties, there, the alcohol, I thought it was in the nineties.
Yeah, so, Gail, I can go forward with it, yep, you can go forward, that's for you. Could you pass that to me, please?
It's nice to see it at the top on the roof.
Yeah, and actually in, one of the calendars that, Myrna did for, fundraising for the St. James Schoolhouse, there's a picture of the house too, it has the bunking, and, from like 1912 probably. So I asked her, you know, if she had a copy, if she could share that, so that we can at least have a file of the house, so, but he was really gracious to send that along. So, oh, well, Jonathan's next, so, well, we plan to watch the 15-minute video. It's already 10:08, and I don't really like to keep people, on the computer till 11 o'clock at night. like some boards do.
I don't like it because a rapper who knows to speak at these meetings.
So just watch the time, and when we get to that, you know, we can decide if we're Jonathan, you want to come join us now?
Yeah.
You go still.
Thank you for joining us,
Thank you guys for having me.
and thank you for offering to volunteer. We've seen your application, and can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your reasons for coming forward to join the Historical Commission?
Well, I moved here about 3 years ago, from Rhode Island. This town is very countryish compared to where I was living before, which is very city-like. So it was a very weird transition for me. At first, I didn't like it, but because I wasn't used to it, but I'm grown to love it. It's very relaxed, it's peaceful, and not much happens here. Can be a good thing and can be a bad
Are
thing.
you on Facebook?
But, I mean, I like it. It's good
Going to
community.
Warwick, Dayton.
Yeah, but it's a good community. Everyone knows each other.
Okay, I know in your application, you said you didn't know much about the history of Dayton, but you're willing to learn.
Yeah,
and willing-
absolutely.
Okay, and willing to work. What strengths would you bring to the commission? Well, please say IT, no.
I'm sorry?
Please say IT.
IT,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm good with like social media and things like that.
Oh, that'll help, okay.
I don't know, I can't program a computer. I could run like Facebook or something.
Okay, I was just curious, you know, that would just be awesome, but anyway, what strengths do you see that you bring to us?
Geez, tough question. I'm a little nervous to be honest. Strength, I think, I'm not really sure how to answer that.
Okay, don't worry.
He has an open mind and a sense of humor,
Okay.
and I didn't know much when I came on board, so.
Yeah.
And I think it's enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic, there you go. I mean,
Wants
you're
to get
here.
involved in the history of
Yeah, I
And
think
you-
I'm
You remember Knights of Columbus?
yeah,
So you're
I'm
already-
ambitious. I like I said before, I didn't like the town, but I love it now, so I just want to help back and give back to the community.
Okay, great, awesome. Does anyone else have any questions for Jonathan? They call you Jonathan or John?
John, please.
John.
Yeah, my mother always used to call me Jonathan whenever I'm in trouble.
Oh, yeah, oh,
I
yeah.
kind of back off from that.
Do you know when Dayton was?
1712.
I'll entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that Jonathan Lawrence be appointed to the Dayton Historical Commission.
So, I second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, let us vote. Pat? Aye. Pam?
Aye.
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 And I'm also an aye. So, well, now what we'll do is, I'll go home tonight and write the recommendation to get to the end of tomorrow morning. I think it's on your agenda.
Yes, in anticipation of this happening,
Yeah.
it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
So once the Board of Selectmen approve it tomorrow night, you'll get notice from the clerk's office that you have to come in and be sworn in.
Is there like a certain time frame in like the next day, or like you can have like a week or something?
You gotta do it before our next meeting,
Oh,
because then you'll get to vote at the next meeting and have input and all that kind of stuff. So it won't happen right away. We'll vote on it tomorrow night, we have to sign off on it, goes to the clerk's office, they prepare some stuff. And they should send, it's an email address, right?
Yeah, I have it, yeah.
They'll send you an email telling you to come in and you'll get sworn in.
okay,
You know, we're open Monday through Thursday, so
okay.
I don't know if it flips for your work hours.
Yeah, my work hours are Sunday through Tuesday I'm off, and then I work Thursday.
Okay, so you'll be able to come in next week, then probably, so you get that notification.
And Leanne's really good about letting you know, like, when everything's all set. So I'll be in touch if you do. And I will be sending you stuff, So we learn about being on the commission. There's a lot of information from the Massachusetts Historical Commission on being a member. Just all kinds of, like, we have goals, a mission statement that I'll share with you. And some videos and, you know, just some general information that I found helpful, and I think all of us did as we learned this job, so.
Okay, great.
Ribbon, just remind, and he gets a shirt.
Oh, yes, and we have a shirt for you too.
Sorry, I put that in there.
Do you guys wear it? I mean.
I do, but I,
Yes.
yes, I do.
When we have official business.
Yeah.
But not.
Just remember, it belongs to the town, so when you're all done.
You're right.
Yeah,
So-
Yeah.
So, are you full? You have
Yes, I
something?
can
So,
say,
okay.
my team is full.
Not too many boards on it, so.
I don't know if hasn't been since I've been here.
No, this is,
How long is like this, like the membership or like being part of a committee?
it's a lifetime now. No.
No, I didn't think you have to get elected, like.
We're
every
appointed
year?
every 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
So we reappoint the next June, and I think we're trying to do 2 years now, I think, because a lot of them.
No,
are-
state, ours is like state.
Okay,
3 years.
so he'd be appointed, I'm not sure who's replacing, so we have to figure out
Yeah,
what he's got left, and then we appoint every 2 members at least every year. So,
right.
And it's the same concept, like interview and say yay or nay?
No, it goes to the board of selectmen, they, unless the chairman tells us not to reappoint, we're gonna reappoint, so I don't anticipate that.
Okay.
That's why I
It really
say it's a
happens.
lifetime.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You're welcome to stay right here.
Oh, absolutely, thank you.
You just need a vote.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to preservation planning. The FY 21 survey and planning grant update is on Stacy Spies, our preservation consultant, contract signed. She was in town today. She spent some time at the Historical Society just looking at some of the house files and records to get a sense of some of the homes that are on our preliminary target list. She also was what she called a windshield view of the town. She was gonna drive by the streets and look, you know, just get a sense of Dayton, where the properties are and the areas that they're in. She has done some reading about Dayton. She's very enthusiastic, and I think she will be a good fit. I will be preparing a letter of introduction for her that she can carry with her, and also a letter to the police department regarding her presence in town. So that's good. The first phase is to be completed by October 29th. And that phase is 6 weeks, and when I looked at the calendar, I said, oh my gosh, it's not really that far away. The products that we'll get out of the first phase are some working maps that she can use to identify and inventory properties, a methodology statement of how she's going to do it, including objectives, the criteria for selecting the properties that she's going to select, the procedures, expectations about the kind, location, and character of the properties, an assessment of the existing documentation, a brief description of the amount of kinds of information to be gathered, and then a bibliography of what she's going to be using. So that's our starting point. The second phase will be completed by December 17th. So we're almost through the first one. This is pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited. So we're moving forward with that.
So she bought a copy of the history of Dayton, I think, today.
Yes, she bought a copy,
Historical
yeah.
Society.
Yeah.
And was my house added to it? I know probably shouldn't have but it should be, because it's.
Yes, it
one
should be.
little
We
Yeah,
discussed
but
that.
we will talk, I will add that too. So a lot of the properties on there, they go up to about 1850, you know, and like Karen, her house is on there, but like your Form B is not complete, they only did one side, who knows, you know, who knows why. So anyway, yeah, but we'll add it. And then we don't know what properties are gonna make the cut either.
Yeah.
So, it definitely. All right. Historical marker program, right? Rafa, historical marker, there's no
Well-
house there.
Well, the historical market program, that is kicking ass. So far.
But it's not house, right? I want a historical marker.
Historical market. So, earlier this year, Bowen has first historical house marker awarded to the Untitled Chapter, which is the Bowen Museum. And then my house received its historical marker September 23rd. And then we have 3 houses who also applied, and we will review their applications tonight. And I actually made copies for everybody, because I know you guys never made copies for yourself.
Oh, that's a good. I know, so.
I actually want to, the copy machine of town hall.
Yes.
And one of the secretaries, you guys are already wearing, I was like, who are you? The vice chairman of historic commission. You don't need one of these. So the first property in question is located at 2150 Pleasant Street in Dayton. The proprietor's name is Karen Gannon, who is present in the room. Say hi, Karen.
Hello.
Now, indeed, is your husband, Larry,
Yes,
is the co-owner as well?
but I think that the front cover copy is different than the one you were going to replace.
Oh, okay, doesn't make a difference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not, doesn't matter. As long as you got information in there. Now, for the original owner's name is Reed-Briggs.
We think that, no, the original owner is Anthony Reed, that at least for the deed that I have. And that was in 1841. And then I do have, it looks like that Charles Whitmarsh might have sold it to him. It's just, it's very difficult reading the deed.
Yeah, I have very difficulty with this agents, but.
Yes, and it's really hard to say.
So Charles Whitmarsh sold to Reed.
Yes, but whether or not, in the deed, it's hard to tell whether there's even a house there. So, you know, it was certainly a possibility. They seem to have, you know, owned it in a number of pieces of land, and they seem to sell it back to each other. I'm not sure why, yeah. But I do have that, the original deed that I brought in, that just,
Wow.
that,
That's amazing.
Doc Robinson, Fred Robinson had given to me and bought the house from them, in 1980.
Yeah. Okay.
Which Robinson owned the house?
Yeah, right. And before that, it was, owned by the Briggs family, from that time until, let's see, Robinson's bought it in 1956. So it was passed down through the family. So I think originally I had said the Reed Briggs, and then I changed it to actually Briggs Lake. And the reason why is because it was owned by the Briggs family through inheritance for all of that time. And also I was looking at who was important that had lived there or owned it, and one of them was William Thomas Blake, who was a master of a vessel that served in the Civil War in the Navy. And so I think you should have maybe this, I don't know who had that.
It makes sense to me, given the neighborhood lore of the stories about those houses, so that makes sense to me.
Right, and it was once I went back and started looking at things, and then this Norma Blake, who also was related to the Briggs, married an Andrews, and then in the book, the Lane book, she's listed Norma Andrews as the first librarian in Dayton, and she lived there as a very young girl. And she was I guess the librarian and the library trustee from 1904 to 1921.
Is that when the Andrew Carnegie Library was in 1904? That was, yeah.
No,
1910 or something.
yeah. She actually was the librarian, I think, when it was here at the Grange, because the library was here for a while.
Yeah, the book just shows a picture of her and then something underneath. And so, then in the 1920 census, William T. Blake lived there with his daughter and grandson, whose name was Alan Brightman, Alan Briggs Brightman. Okay. So it continued.
So, Sean, the Briggs were the original residents.
So really, I mean, Reed was the original owner. I don't have very much about him. He did at one point, I found his listing on a deed where he sold land, and it said, it looks like close to where the landing is, because it bordered the Great Taunton River, and he owned, was president of the, I think it's the Dayton Steam Mill and Trading Company. But then 2 years later, it appeared as if it was sold. So I'm not sure it was very successful. But there were names that I recognized that were part of that business. William Cobb, Charles W. Briggs, who also, owned the house. Cyrus Talbot, Joseph Pitts. So, and then when looking him up further in the 1850s, moved to Minnesota. I'm not sure why, but with his wife, who was of the Bliss family from Rehoboth, I think with her mother as well. So I don't have, as I said, too much about.
No, but I think I'm blown by all this information, all this historical information.
Yeah, it's just,
it's
forever. I did it for a couple of years and then it's like, okay, I can't pay for this tester anymore. And then it was, okay, I really am supporting the Taunton Records with $1 a page.
Well, on the second page, she listed the original characteristics of the house.
Yeah, and there was, I think, in the Massachusetts historic plot that they had. This is the picture of when I bought the house, which looks just like, that picture. When we couldn't close the front door anymore or open it, we tried to get people to come and look at it. In the 1980s, it's like we couldn't find anyone who wants to work on old houses. They just wanted to build new ones. So we finally found someone who, said, okay, I'll look and see if it's the beams, the header and also down below, and if it's rotted and it's, if your house is falling down, you might want to just sell it. Right. So he broke a saw going through, the beam at the bottom and just said, I don't know where this came from, but they had to have trucked it, through shipping, brought it from someplace, and this, was absolutely, for being so old, it's fine. But it also found that there's a fan, which is, what it was noted for also in the design. And when he took that all off, it was all rotted, completely down even behind the boards there, and so he replaced some of that. But he didn't know how to replace the fan because the fan was completely rotted. So he had asked me, he said, I can't do the boards, and I think it's like palisades on the side. He said, but I really like doing old houses. Could I build you a fan? So he actually built one that kind of matched it because I guess the newer ones, they just take a board and then they put grooves in it, so it looks like there's boards there. So that's the change, so that there isn't, you know, that part that goes on this side.
Process, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to look at these, it just. I mean, the other reason why we took the whole front of the house off and put, is because there was no insulation. When he took everything off, there was nothing, not even newspaper that was behind there. And we had already put, you know, insulation in the, certainly in the attic.
So is the siding wood?
So the siding right now is wood,
It's wood.
but it's clapboard.
Okay.
So the shingles came off. And then when he discovered that was, you know, an issue, and because he was willing to work, he said, you have beams in the rest of the house, it's why if you drop a, you know, marble, it's gonna go into, you know, 3 rooms away. And he opened everything up and replaced some of those beams and shored stuff up. Unfortunately, I should have at the time, there was white plank in the dining room, and some of it was rotted, but I wish we had saved it, maybe have it milled, but we had a budget. And then he said, you know, I do kitchens too. And so then it was just, at that point, it's like, okay, why don't you just move in with us? So he had a young son who was the same age as my son and daughter, you know, so that they would come and play while, you know, he worked.
We'll work for babysitter.
So, you know.
Would you
But, yeah.
know, if that house ever involved with the Underground Railroad?
No, not that I've ever seen. And definitely, I mean, the original foundation, you can tell because, you know, it's a stone floor, and also it's, you know, the stone foundation. That's the, you know, 100 flat stones. The other thing it has is upstairs, almost all the floors are the original white planks. They have the spaces where the rope is, and in a few of the places you can see where the rope is just like run in between. And the upstairs has all latches, like every door has a latch, so that even the one that goes outside is an original latch. Some of the other ones, you can tell that people try to repair them, or I repaired them. It's like something went, so that we just went to, you know, places, I forget the different companies that.
150, are you somewhere in that area where people are doing 45 miles an hour?
Yes.
They want decreasing play?
Yes, and I want that in front of my house, I just don't want it the rest of the way. Because going into Somerset, it doesn't really make sense, that end.
It's amazing how quickly they go around that corner. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so there is.
I do have one other thing that's interesting, and that is, the probate record from when he did die, that Charles Walker Briggs in the 1870s, and it's a list of everything that he owned. And he owned 2 houses, and so they split the property eventually when he died, so that 2 of his children, he took the house that's south of mine, and then the other took my house. And in fact, there was one barn, and the people must have got the barn, but the boundary line went through part of the barn, so that it had said in the deed that once the barn fell down, that, you know, it would revert back. And the Robinsons made sure that I knew that, you know, don't let anyone talk you into thinking we don't own, because it's a foundation.
The brick side, not Henrik side, the other side.
The other side.
Yeah, I remember that when I was a kid.
Right. But it is, it's everything that he owned, and it looks like he owned, or it implies that he owned, shares in, a vessel, a schooner, like a marine or something, but it's just interesting to see, you know, what, you know, the animals that he had, and you know, what he owned and whether he owed money to other people, just, you know, farm wagons and that kind of stuff.
Do you know when you took the shingles off, was they clapboard underneath the shingles?
No.
No.
No. No.
Does anyone else have any questions for Karen? Rather, are you all set?
Yeah, I think I'm just like concerned about the name, but the proper name of the house should be. Is it like Anthony Reed or a combination?
Yeah, and this is, I think this is the one that I thought I had sent this to you, but I had changed. That it really wanted, my suggestion would be to make it the Briggs Blake House.
Briggs Lake?
Blake, because Blake is one of the people who, you know, was, as I said, the trustee of the library was Blake, and also the person, William Thomas Blake, was, you know, master of the vessel, lived in the house especially, you know, with his grandson at the end of his life as well. So that made sense. I mean, it was just every time I did more research, it was like it changed.
Don't we normally go with the first owner of the house?
Yeah.
So, it's similar to my house when, in 1766, Benjamin Wright owned the land, doesn't show a house, but in 1776, it's transferred, I don't know, to the son. Then there's a house on the property, so I don't know exactly when the house, but it's kind of like, you don't know when the house was actually put on the property. So
Right.
Whitmarsh made
So in
that.
that case, Reed Briggs makes more sense, and that's why on this, you can see that I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I was like leaning towards some of these Briggs. Because I don't see like Blake. I don't even see Blake as on the deed. Is it on the deed?
His wife was Sarah Walker Briggs.
Oh, okay. Sarah Walker Briggs, okay.
And then that was when it was, after that is when they divided the property. And it was Norma Blake.
But another problem is if we combine the Briggs, it would be people who like who do they live together? The two families live together, do they co-own the property?
Yeah, yeah, I see what you mean.
So it's a dilemma.
Well, I personally think both names. My house, Benjamin Wright owned it for a long time, then his daughter married Charles Lee Turner, and they owned it for at least 15 years, so I would want it to be Wright Turner, given respect to both the first two owners, so I kind of, but I hear what you're saying.
But I haven't grown up there in the town. I've never heard that house referred to as the Reed House.
Right,
You
right.
know,
And I think the fact that he moved out of town, you know,
Yeah.
far away.
so I don't know.
It's
Briggs,
there 12 years, I think, right?
Briggs makes sense to me because
Yeah, and I don't know how long
it's all
Briggs
Briggs
there.
there.
Briggs makes sense to me as at least would be my top choice to have Briggs in the name. Because they owned it for so long.
So it's Reed Briggs. Now, what are the chances of, let's say, a second or third historical house also being named Reed Briggs?
There were so many Briggs. It's pretty much,
They're a common name.
it's a very common name. I think there's less chance of there being a Reed Briggs. But it's hard to say.
I would say,
Reed Briggs?
yeah,
There's a house on, when the Reeds transferred to Briggs, it says building,
Yeah.
so I assume it's gonna be a house.
yeah, Reed Briggs if they were the first, and then, because that's what we said.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make
Yeah, I had done this.
Yes?
So like all things that, I thought I would put that with.
Okay, Rafa,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that the property owned by Karen Gannon at 2150 Pleasant Street, Dayton, have as historical name Reed Briggs House.
is there a second?
I second. So moved.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I second. It's getting late. I second you, Rafa.
All right, so you're saying that the historical name be Reed Briggs, yes, okay. We have a motion, so let's vote. Pat? Aye. Pam?
Aye.
Bill? Aye. Rafa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. All right, do you have another motion, Rafa?
What was it? Oh, I motion that we award the historical marker for 2150 Pleasant Street.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All right, let's vote. Pat?
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
Bill? Aye. Rafa?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And also an aye, that motion passes. Okay, great.
Number 3.
And I will
You get the
contact
marker.
you.
Let us know.
All right,
Have you
so-
seen that, because that's related to some of the people that are going to you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a doctor's like that you saw.
Yeah, yeah.
You want that
You
back?
want this back
Yeah,
there?
give it to
Awesome.
Oh, that's exciting.
I'm watching the time here. I'd like to.
We can do it, we can finish it.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. The next house in question is located at 925 Main Street, belonging to Patricia Olson. Copies for everybody, Dan?
Thank you, Rafa.
Oh, yeah. we can do it. You can't vote, by the way. So this property is located at 925 Main Street, and the applicant's name is Patricia Olson, who is here present. She is requesting that the original owner's name be Hiram and Bowen. House was built in 1891. And on the second page, you'll see a summary description of the house. History, and I'm actually quite intrigued by the historical content.
To be a kid and to watch a house move up a street, and to buy it like 30 years later, it's like, oh God.
That was 1917, you saw it?
Yes, yes. That is when I saw it.
The address, obviously, I did not see any Form B, any survey form.
There is none.
At Macros, and that's sort of
There is
the
none.
site. And also your second house, but we'll discuss later.
But Pat is helping me put them together, so there will be a Form B.
Right.
I had issues shrinking down the size of the house and shrinking down the map that you must put on that Form B into that little square that they give you, and I just couldn't do it, and so I asked Pat to help me with that.
Yeah,
I can fill in the blanks, but
they're working on that, it's a matter of, it's a Word document.
Yeah.
So when you add the picture, it makes all the.
everything else turns wonky.
Yeah, so just a little finessing.
Third page shows a copy of the deed. Third and fourth page. which is very weird.
I tried to highlight it with a yellow highlighter, so on page, it says 173 in the corner, if you look at the bottom section, you see the third line down, Hiram and Bowen is a little underlined, it was a yellow highlighter,
Really?
I tried.
Well, whoever, the condition is beautiful.
Isn't it?
But it looks Sanskrit to me. And of course, next page, you have a picture of the front of the house,
Oh, gosh.
vivid color.
Did you paint it? It's black now?
Yeah,
What is the style?
it's a Queen Anne.
Queen Anne, okay.
That picture's horrible.
Well, I used the town hall. What is it?
Come on, Ralphie, you put it all in color, like
There you go, that's what I look like, it's so pretty.
Oh, maybe because the ink is like that. I don't know.
Open house.
Who cares? It is a pretty house. I don't know how it's-
It has two stairways, one in the front, it's a very handcrafted, beautiful baluster, and the one in the back is very utilitarian, either for a housekeeper or whatever to go, and the stairs are very angled, so the back stairs are wood and plain and painted, and the front stairs are flat.
Is it like a wraparound porch?
It's a wraparound porch, it's a 9-room, plus 2 bathrooms, plus 2 halls.
Wow.
It was all wallpapered when I bought it, and I put a smile on my face. I was gonna wallpaper everything on it. And I did. I learned to wallpaper, and I love to wallpaper. But now I'm taking it down, and the price of wallpaper being what it is, we're painting the walls.
Nice. I like it. That was nice.
Oh, I like it very much. Very, very much.
Nice, yeah.
The marker, the cemetery marker for Hiram Bowen is in the church that we visited. Pat helped find it. He was a very prestigious stone and brick mason, and he had money, and if you see his headstone, you realize, nice, I mean, it's beautiful, it's just beautiful.
Did he make his own headstone, do you know?
I don't think he did. He had one daughter, Mabel, and Mabel married a man, excuse me, named George Ashley, and so the stone says Bowen Ashley, but that was his son.
Yeah, and there's a mark, name on the side, probably the, people that did the monument, I can't remember what it said now.
Something in stone.
Yeah, something in stones, yeah.
Is there a motion, Rafa?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to designate 925 Main Street, Dayton, Massachusetts, property belonging to Patricia Olson, as a historical house to be named Hiram and Bowen House.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote. Bill? Rafa?
Aye.
Neil? Aye. Pam?
Aye.
Pat?
I shouldn't vote.
No,
Yeah, you have to
we're
abstain.
not.
You're abstaining.
I understand.
And I am an aye. That motion passes.
Yay.
Ms. Olson,
Yes, sir,
would you be interested in becoming a member of the Dayton Historical Society?
very much so.
Okay, just as you know, your
Yes.
first year membership is free.
Now, that is a calendar year?
No, this is
Yeah.
first year.
Right.
Well,
Can
we
you
have,
bet she wants a banker
we have the president of the Dayton Historical Society, we can tell
On
you.
the treasurer, we actually have the vice president, yeah, but.
Keep passing it around. It's
No.
not just for November and December.
No, Chris and I talked about this briefly, because I talked about, number one, she needs to be notified when there's
Yeah.
new members, so we can take on that responsibility with the email address so that we can notify them of their meetings. But secondly, she was thinking that if someone gets the marker tonight, then the dues would be due in May. I disagree with that, because I think we say a year, right?
Yeah.
So I actually think it, and because you're the vice chair, if you're in agreement with this, I think it should, like if she becomes a member, a year from next May is when her dues are due. So it's a year and a half, I get it, but we can't just
Yeah, suddenly
charge it
collect.
half a year or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, my dues aren't that, that high, but new members, It's $100, it's $100.
$100.
200, yeah.
No, but,
Providing Olson.
yeah, it'll come up at probably at the next historical society meeting, which you would be a member will decide when the dues are, right? I think it shouldn't be just 6 months, it's gonna be a year, and then I wanna have to play
That makes
the old
sense.
$5 or $4.99, whatever, the rest of it, so,
Yeah.
anyway. But
Thank you.
I just need to be notified of that, that's all.
I'd like to make another motion, please. I'd like to move that a historical marker be awarded to the property at 925 Main Street, Dalton, Massachusetts, owned by Patricia Olson.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, we'll vote. Bill? Rafa? Yeah,
Aye.
and Pat, you're,
Abstaining again.
and I vote aye, and that motion passes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the last house in question is this house is located at 1146 Main Street, Maine, Massachusetts. Our owner is Patricia Olson, who is here present with us. And she is proposing that the historical name of this house be called Joe Perry Suit. Suit? Really?
That's sweet.
Oh, that's sweet,
That's the name, the last name is Sue?
Soup.
The house was built in 1901.
You can see the earliest deed is a deed transferring land from Adoniram Smith of Plymouth, so he did not live here. He sold the land to Joe Perry Soup in 1900. And I went to the assessor's tax records when Kenny, when you were talking about when was the house built. So I kept looking up the assessor's tax records. Is there a house there or isn't there? And what did he pay for taxes? So in 1901, Joe Perry Sue paid a tax with a house on it. So that's how I know it was built in 1901.
27 acres of land.
Yes,
Wow.
the farm is still intact, it is still 27 acres.
Wow.
We're not selling anything off. So Joe Perry Sue built the house in 1901 and he had 7 children. And that house, it was me and my brother when we lived there, it was tiny then, so 7 kids, good for you. In 1925, when I was looking at the assessor's book, in 1925, he had 1 horse, Joe Perry Sue, had 1 horse, 2 cows, a house, a barn, and a greenhouse. He made his living on that 27 acres of land. He passed, the family sold the home in 1951 to my mother and father. So there was 1 family in there for 50 years, and now 1 family for the next 70 years.
So you were you born in this house?
I was born in one hospital and brought there as soon as I came home. So I was not born in the house, but I lived there until I got married. So to only have 2 families
That's
live in a house for 120 years, I mean, that's pretty,
That's amazing.
that's something.
So Gregory Olson is your husband?
No, Greg is my son.
Oh, your son. Okay, so it's also under his name.
This house is under his name as well.
So he becomes a member also of the staff.
If we want to, yeah.
I will let him know that, I'll let you know if he's interested.
He said he'll be a member on paper.
Oh, all right, okay.
He doesn't have to show up to the meetings, doesn't have to volunteer for any work or anything. You-
Not like I do, right, I understand.
Well, we volunteer
difference.
for the work.
I gotcha. After I give the $200 for dues.
Okay, you have Christmas parties.
I know, you know I want that Christmas party.
All right, Rafa?
And what is the style of the house?
That's a farmhouse,
It's just a farmhouse.
and on the Form B, it's like, why was this house built? Joe Perry Sue immigrated here from Portugal, like for the American dream, so that was built purely as a residence, he shelter, it was a shelter. Whereas when my house was built, you were talking a family with money, and he put money into it, and he picked the style of home that was prestigious at the time. And when my home was built, the 925 house, it was located next to the library. You know where the library is on Main Street, that parking lot? My house used to be there, and that's when they moved. So it fit in that neighborhood more than it fits in mine. It doesn't really fit in at the top of Main Street, because there's no other two-floor Queen Anne stuff there, so.
No, because the other houses are newer.
Exactly, that wasn't as developed, so.
Is this the original exterior, like, which material?
Materials, no.
It has
When my father bought it in 51, it had something called imitation brick. Have you ever seen that?
good pictures?
Ooh, maybe somewhere, that's a riot. So my father,
Inside, right?
no, imitation brick on the outside of the house.
Yeah.
No, well, it held up to the weather well. It was something that was popular at the time.
The chimney is original?
The chimney's original.
Next to your house is a relatively new house, isn't it? That you were mad at me because the ZBA approved it. I was on the ZBA.
Oh, I know which house that is.
One up on the hill.
They never built the second house, huh?
No, we didn't.
Alright. Wrap up, are you ready?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion, Madam Chairman, that the house at 1136 Main Street, Dyton, Massachusetts, owned by Patricia Olson, be historically named as Joe Perry Suit.
Suit, like a men's suit.
Oh, suit.
So, a woman's suit too.
All right, a
Joe
men's
Perry
suit.
Suit. So the Americanized is what he's name.
He had roughly 9 aliases.
Really?
Oh, it's a riot, but it's not Joseph Perry Sue, it's Joe. That was the one predominantly that he signed on papers, but he was known as several things. Really, he had like, if you look in the deeds, it had like 9 different choices of different spelling variations of his name.
Was he the
Makes you wonder.
Just wondering.
Yeah, what's they running from?
Alright, are you ready? Go.
Okay, second motion? Oh,
Don't
did you
click
vote?
me in
Yeah, you got it.
Okay,
Was there a
Rafa
second
made
on the
a
motion?
Was there a second?
Rafa made his motion, I second.
Okay. Alright, let's vote to name the house the Joe Perry Suit. There, 1136 Main Street. Bill?
Aye.
Rafa?
Aye.
Gail? Aye. Pam?
Aye.
Pat?
I abstain.
And I'm an aye. Okay, motion carries. Rafa?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the property at 1136 Main Street be rewarded a historical marker.
Order the historical marker.
Please, rewarded a historical marker.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any other further discussion? Let's vote. Bill?
Aye.
Rafa?
Aye.
Gail? Aye. Pam?
Aye.
Pat?
I abstain.
And I'm an aye. That motion passes.
Look at that, we doubled our inventory in one night.
Awesome, thank you. This is marvelous. All right, I'm looking at the time, it's 9 o'clock, so I'm trying to go a little bit more quickly.
It's a short video.
Okay.
She knows something.
So,
That's all right.
for the letter to the homeowners in the National Register Districts, I have the envelope, so it's, we have the letter that we approved at past meetings. I'll get that on the letterhead and we'll start getting those out, within the month. Preservation long planning, long range scope and sequence, the grant applications. I sent everyone the draft of our Cpc application to eligibility for our, that's being by November 30th. Again, it's a requesting $25,000. We will be applying to the Massachusetts Historical Commission for the FY22 survey and planning grant. The description of the project was in there. Does anyone have any questions about the description or this application?
Do you have to go to CPC first, or we wait till it's approved?
It's almost a simultaneous thing because this is due November 30th. The letter of intent for the survey and planning grant is due November 15th. Like we did last year, we kind of simultaneously did both of them. The grant actually came through first, I believe, and then the funding for the CPC.
Which will be next June.
Again, you're right, because this proposed timeline would be July 20th to 2022 to 2023. I did email Peter Scott from the Mass Historical Commission and said that, you know, we were planning on doing this. And he wrote back to me that they usually don't encourage back-to-back grants.
Really?
However, that times are different now and that we should send in at least a letter of intent to see how we feel within the application process. So if the pool of applicants for the state grant is small, our chances are good. If it's bigger, our chances probably aren't as good. So it doesn't hurt to put the letter of intent in. The worst they can say is no. And then, as far as I'm concerned, if you don't ask for the money, you're not gonna know if you would get it, so. Anyway, so the CPC application for eligibility, is there any questions on this? Okay, I want to make a motion that we submit this application for eligibility to the CPC. So moved. Wait a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, let's vote that.
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
Bill? Aye. Rafa? Bill?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. All right. Moving on to FY 2022 survey and planning grant. Rafa had put together a first draft of the letter. We have to do some revisions. Because it has to be a little bit more detailed.
Well, this is, I think I was confused.
Okay.
I thought you wanted the letter of intent.
Oh, that's what they call their,
Is it the same as narrative?
yes, they call this whole package their letter of intent.
Okay.
And the second page is the narrative. So Rafa, you and I can work that out.
Sure.
I would ask that we entertain a motion to submit the letter of intent for the FY 22 survey and planning grant upon completion of the narrative by Pat and Rafa. And Gail, she's also on that. On that committee. So moved. Is there a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's vote. Bill?
Aye.
Rafa?
Aye.
Gail?
Aye.
Aye. Bill has sent a concern about the long-range scope and planning for the expenses on our preservation planning, and which is a good point. And looking at how much it's going to cost in the long run, where we're going, a document that presents a bottom line figure and schedule about additional funding, which I do agree, you know, that is in planning, it's necessary to do that. So in beginning to do that, I found these 3 steps of historic preservation planning. It talks about the steps are, first one is identification, is what we are doing right now. Then I also started kind of like brainstorming what this document would look like. It'll need some work, some details that can go into it. It would include our mission statement, our goals that address preservation planning. I looked at the NACRS website, there's like 438 properties listed there that are all broken out. And that this identification should be an ongoing process. There is another document from the Mass Historical Commission that I will send you the link on that to take a look at it. It is called, 24 something or other, reasons for preserving, I forgot where I wrote that down. I'll send you the link because it talks about the economic reasons to do preservation, what advantages it brings to your town, such as tourism, businesses, and how it can be a benefit to your town. So you should take a look at that. This is a big task for President Trump, this a long-range plan, and especially the bottom line of funding. So I am certainly willing to work on it. Is there anyone else that would be willing to work on that?
I'll give you a
Sign it. Bill?
On which part of this are you looking at?
We need to get started on the long-range scope and sequence, so. And we're in identification as far as.
Well, some of that is already done with, well, will be done in this first go around on this, with cataloging and what this girl is doing.
Right,
So she's gonna identify houses or
9
properties.
properties, yeah.
That's right. So that part is, I'm assuming when you have, if you look at the Excel spreadsheet of the assessors list of houses, if you look at how many houses say are 1,600, there's 1600 houses according to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another 50 or something, 1,800, from 1,800 to 18 or 1,799 or whatever. So those are the kind of questions. How many houses do we care about doing this for in the future? In other words,
Well, I think when you're talking about the future, one of the things you're always talking about is every year another house turns 100 years old. So identification, and this kind of leads into the video and that we were going to watch tonight. It talks about how identification should be an ongoing process in the historical commission and always a reviewing process of it, which kind of has not really happened with the Form Bs for Dayton. And it is common in many small towns and cities, and in big cities, that it does not happen. So, but the way that I read your concern about the scope, long-term scope should be, I'm talking about the number of houses, a bottom line figure and a schedule is like, just what do we want to do with it? And then it also leads to the discussion of, if you're trying to sell these projects, the reason why. Why are you, and so I think if we have a document, a sheet that says, these are the reasons why we're doing it, this is what we figure it will cost.
well, I was thinking about multiple hits on the CPC. In other words, this thing is not complete yet, funded it, but so I was thinking if there were more hoses that 25,000 wouldn't cover, say.
It's not going to, yeah.
I don't think you want to go to a funding source like CPC, just kind of hit them for more and more. It's better to have a scope in terms of finance as well,
Okay, so my
But I
question
think
to you
you
is,
did nicely slipped the issue as far as going back to CPC for money, because you redefined the need with this North Dayton Village local historic district funding, which is what.
no, that is not the local historic district funding. The application for it is to have the survey done on those properties, because those properties there face the same problems as the ones that we are doing right now.
Okay, so the 25K sort of covers the same number of houses, only up in North Dayton someplace, or whatever.
Right.
Sort of.
If you look at maps, that Mount Hope property, that area, was identified in 2003
by the Department of Environmental Management for a heritage landscape project. They went through 20 years ago, did the documentation of that area. It was earmarked that it was eligible for a national historic register, National Register of Historic Places nomination. It never got there. So in looking at that, that's an important piece of Dayton's history. So the first thing that has to be done, again,
Is
the identification.
right, okay, so I got it, the actual, the process of creating through the Massachusetts Historic Commission, obviously, the local historic district for that area, doesn't really cost any money, really.
Doing a local historic district is totally separate from that, because that in itself
Right.
has its own guidelines to become a local historic district. And that was the video that we were going to be watching tonight, so you would learn more about that.
Okay.
But that is a possible end game. You know, it's either
Right,
to be,
right.
both, it can be both, you know, a nomination to the National Register or a local historic district.
Okay, I got it.
Right,
Yeah.
so, but your question to the scope and sequence,
I was thinking more of if you were going to hit the CPC with additional money for more houses, not necessarily in the village district, but just because you need more, you wanted more, we wanted more houses than the initial 25K is going to, buy us. So if you were going to go back and say, well, it's just going to, we couldn't have, we wanted 100 houses and we'd only be able to do 50 or 60 or something.
it will be 90.
That it has a problem usually because funding sources don't want an open-ended kind of agree,
Right,
So,
that's right.
but side slipping a little bit to the North Dayton area.
I don't like that word side slipping, because that's not what it is. And I'm gonna call you on it. It is identification of properties in Dayton that have historic value. It's the same as this part, the first phase of this grant that we did. It's the identification of the areas up there.
Well, are we going to revisit the rest of Dayton again, like we're?
Oh, we're not done.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
back up a minute. What about houses that she might identify that are already in the North Dayton district? Or is she limiting herself to not North Dayton?
The preliminary list, which you have a copy of, identifies what she's starting with.
Okay.
And what she's gonna narrow down from that list.
All right, but I think the way you worded it, I won't say side-slipping, but kind of changes the focus a little bit to the north end of Dayton, the North Dayton. Helps, gives a warm fuzzy to funding sources
No,
that.
we are identifying
Okay,
homes and properties, we are not doing warm and fuzzies, okay?
well,
Is there any other discussion on this? Is there any need to do a scoping sequence? Okay. It is now 9:10. We were going to watch and discuss the video on local historic districts.
It's an hour long.
minutes.
It's more than an
I
hour.
know, we were gonna watch 15
We're
minutes.
gonna do 15 minutes.
But I'm gonna request that we,
I would be waiting for you that popcorn now.
that we, put this off to next meeting.
Sounds good.
Or
Just watch it individually.
watch it individually and we will discuss it at next.
yeah. Sounds
All
good.
right, I'll send you the link to, you can see it, okay? Any new business? Correspondence, we did get an email
from Mike about the capital outlay committee submission request that I did forward to you. I'm gonna be talking with Mike about the segregated schoolhouse and gym, because that segregated schoolhouse should be included in the capital plan for, our town, because it's not only for 2023, it's also for, what, 7 years span beyond the capital outlay committee,
I think we're looking for 5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
5 years. So we'll revisit that in November too. Because that letter is not due until November 18th. To the capital outlay committee.
Pretty strict about that date. They want all the departments. Make sure so we can figure it out, but this will be probably CPC money for fiscal year 2023, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Fiscal year 2022 then,
Yeah, we're fiscal, yeah.
so,
And,
actually,
yeah, and I want to talk to the municipal building committee, because actually the schoolhouse is under their domain as to where they see it, and so I'll find out when they're meeting. Because it has to be at least on the list. All right, so that'll be on November's agenda. Our next meeting date is November 9th at 7 p.m. Is there any public input? Nope, no public. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Let's vote. Bill? We're voting on adjourning. Rafa?
Aye.
Dale? Aye. Pam? Aye. Eileen? I've passed. And I'm also an aye. Thank you. We're done. So let me